Hi everybody, this is Andy. Thank you for joining me in this video. And in this video, I'd like to share with you something very important. Before you trust someone with your retirement money, here's a question I think worth thinking about. Is it okay to ask a financial professional how they think about their own money? Now, let me be clear right up front. This is not financial advice. Because you see, I retired from the corporate world after 15 years in financial services. But in those years, I sat across the table from a lot of families having some pretty personal conversation. And here's something I don't think people stop to consider. When you sit down with a professional, they're going to ask you some very personal things. They're going to ask you about your savings, your goals, your family, what keeps you up at night, and what you're hoping the next chapter looks like for you and your family. And that's some personal stuff, and it should be, because they need to help you. So if they're asking you those kind of questions to understand you better, is it fair for you to ask a few respectful ones in return, just to understand how they think? I believe it is. Now, I'm not saying you march in and ask, so what's your net worth? That's probably not the best way to start a good relationship. But it's perfectly fair to ask something like, how do you think about retirement planning for yourself? Or, if you were in my shoes, how would you approach this? Or even, what have you learned from working with families who are close to retirement? And honestly, the most useful one of all is simply, do you usually work with people in a situation like mine? And here's why that matters so much. Your retirement savings, that represents decades of work, years of showing up, saving, making hard decisions. And someone who mostly helps people just getting started may have a very different background than someone who sits with folks near retirement every week, thinking through income, taxes, and how to take care of their spouse. And that doesn't make anyone good or bad. It's just that experience and fit with your personal situation, it does matter. And you have every right to gently ask whether their beliefs, their experience lines up to where you are in your life. And if there's one thing 15 years have taught me, it's this. The best conversations aren't about financial products. They're about trust and clarity and fit. And a good professional doesn't owe you every private detail of their life, but they should be able to walk you through how they think. They should be able to tell you the kind of folks they usually help and how they look at risk. And they should never make you feel small for asking thoughtful questions. And a good conversation tends to work both ways. And if you're not sure how to bring it up, here's a gentle way to say it. I know you may not want to get into personal details, and I completely respect that. But could you help me understand how you think about saving and investing and retiring? Because that's a fair question. It's a kind one, and it'll tell you a lot. And I think this matters even more after 50, because by then, money stops being only growing a number. It becomes a real life. It's about creating steady income, avoiding big mistakes, and making sure that what you've saved actually supports the lifestyle that you want. And those aren't small things. So asking someone's experience and how they think, that's not rude. That's being responsible. And here's the one line I'd hold on to. You don't need to know every personal detail. You just need to have enough clarity to know whether this is the right person for you. That's the balance. You're not here to interrogate or make anything tense. You're just there to ask good questions. Because better questions tend to surface better information, and better information helps you to make better decisions. So here's one small thing you could do in the next day. Just write down 3 questions you want to ask someone before trusting them with your retirement. You need a place to start. So let's go ahead and try these 3 questions as an example. The first question, do you usually work with people in my stage of life? How do you think about retirement planning yourself? And the third question is, how do you help people understand the risks, not just the upside? Those 3 questions can tell you an awful lot. And if this was helpful, go ahead and follow or subscribe. I share these kinds of practical conversations about my life, money, and living your best life after 50. And if this was helpful, go ahead and follow or subscribe. I share these kinds of practical conversations about life, money, and living your best life after 50. And again, this isn't financial advice. It's just a conversation. And when you do sit down with someone to discuss your financial future, it's best to sit down with someone who fully understands your situation. After 50, trust matters, experience matters, and sometimes the questions you ask matter as much as the answers you get.